Parents, what if the device your school handed your child this fall is the exact same gateway that's feeding kids sexually explicit content, teaching them how to make illicit drugs, and telling them to cut themselves, not at home, not on their regular phone, but at school, on the school-issued Chromebook or iPad during class? Let's dig in. I'm Tamara Ugolini, and today I'm going to show you the 6 exact questions every parent needs to ask their school principal before a device ever goes into your kid's backpack. Because if you don't ask them, then nobody will. And look, as a parent myself who has explored literally every schooling option available in today's world, I get it. Back to school is chaos no matter which model you choose. There's sports, homework, new teachers, new curriculum. The last thing that most of us want is another thing to remember. But the digital reality inside classrooms has changed so fast that the computer labs and wheeled-in box TVs of our childhood feels like the dinosaur ages. Today, there are smart boards and one-to-one laptops, tablets, learning platforms, AI tools, and a whole ecosystem of apps quietly collecting, storing, and analyzing information about our kids. And some of those school devices come with backdoors to adult content, addictive algorithms, and AI tools that have already been caught giving kids step-by-step instructions for deadly drug concoctions and encouraging things like self-harm. So no, this isn't some theory either. It's happening right before our eyes and under our noses, and one organization has laid out the exact playbook parents need. It comes from Protect Young Eyes, an initiative founded by Chris McKenna in 2015 aimed at helping families navigate the digital world safely, emphasizing the importance of slow and intentional tech use during childhood and encouraging parents to use it thoughtfully and gradually. So before we get into the questions, let's start with the hard data. According to Internet Safety Labs, 96% of the tech used in classrooms is selling student data to third parties, 96%. And then there's School GPT, which is an AI tutor marketed to kids that gave a detailed gram-by-gram recipe for manufacturing fentanyl while telling the user it was currently helping 31,000 other students.
One of the most common ways to get a chatbot to tell you something it shouldn't is to say, we're just doing a role play. This isn't real life. Or I want you to act as if you were this type of person. If you say that to a parent and then ask them how to synthesize fentanyl, they're going to tell you buzz off and straighten up your act. But a chatbot doesn't have that instinct. You've got to think about, like, you got a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old who has an app that they can talk to about whatever. They are going to try to break it. They are going to try to break it for longer than I tried to break it. That is like the nature of being a teenager. And so I think to not anticipate that that would happen, and it's really hard to get these things right. But I think the market forces that are telling everyone that they need, in order to be competitive, you need AI in all your products all the time, that pressure is sort of urging people to release products that aren't really ready for prime time yet. When we talk about AI in education more broadly, it's not that there isn't value there. It's not that it doesn't help some kids. It's that it removes so much friction from the learning experience that a lot of the actual learning isn't going to happen for students if they can just get ChatGPT to do their homework for them.
In another instance, a reporter using ChatGPT was told to hail Satan and then coached on how to cut her wrists with a sterile or very clean razor blade.
ChatGPT recently encouraged me to cut my wrists. It encouraged me to use a razor blade edge, and it said I could do so on my inner wrist or forearm. I told ChatGPT I was feeling a little nervous about this plan, and it then offered me a breathing technique to ease my nerves. It even said, you can do this.
And parents are finding their elementary and middle school aged kids searching for explicit content on school iPads for months before anyone notices. One family that Protect Young Eyes worked with discovered their son had been doing exactly that on a school device that had a world-class monitoring system, or so they thought. The system flagged it, and the school just never told the parents until the damage was already done. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt has been sounding the alarm on this for over a decade. The shift to phone-based childhood around 2010-2015 tracks almost perfectly with the explosion in teen anxiety, depression, and self-harm, especially for girls. This is the environment schools are plugging your kids into for 6+ hours a day.
Of course, there are good uses of technology in education. My kids have learned a lot from Khan Academy. But I'm very concerned about what happened when we started putting computers and tablets on kids' desks. This is the so-called one-to-one device policies. Computers and tablets are multifunction entertainment systems. If kids can get to the internet, they will play video games and watch short videos, watch YouTube shorts, and even porn. As soon as we brought in one-to-one devices in the 2010s, national test scores began dropping in the USA. And they've dropped in many other countries, especially in the countries that most firmly embraced EdTech. Now, I can't prove that these declines were caused by the screens and the apps that we put on kids' desks. But consider this. Sweden led the world in digitizing education in the 2010s. They got rid of textbooks. They put a device on every desk. They even mandated that nursery schools had to use tablets. But after years of experience and years of declining test scores, Sweden reversed course. In 2023, they announced that they're going back to textbooks, they're pulling out a lot of the devices, they're going back to books and handwriting, especially in the earlier grades. Their top research institute, the Karolinska Institute, issued a report backing the government's position, saying there is clear scientific evidence that digital tools impair rather than enhance student learning. And consider this, many of us professors are banishing computers, laptops from our classrooms. My students at NYU say they learn a lot better when people aren't on devices, when they don't have a computer and the multitasking staring them in the face. But if college students can't learn that well when there's a computer in front of them, how do we expect 8-year-olds to do it?
So here are the questions laid out by Protect Young Eyes that parents should be asking ahead of this school year. Number 1, what are the school's technology policies and can you inspect them? You're looking here for clear current rules on personal devices, even AirPods and smartwatches, student and teacher acceptable use policies, deep fakes and AI academic integrity, plus parent media release forms. An inability to produce these or maybe 2012 era language, those are all red flags. Question 2, how much screen time will my child have each day and which hardware and software will they use? Demand a grade-by-grade breakdown. The preference is device carts that stay at school over those one-to-one devices that go home. Question 3, who evaluates apps, websites, and AI tools for privacy and protection, especially given that most fail privacy standards? Protect Young Eyes advises for 0 AI interaction in pre-K through grade 5 and almost none in junior high. Learning about AI does not require it on every Chromebook. Free opt-out templates are available from the Tech Safe Learning Coalition, and they urge parents to use them. Question number 4, do teachers receive professional development on digital trends that affect kids' brains and on using AI without making things worse? If adults don't understand how these platforms hijack attention, they cannot protect the students in front of them from it. Question number 5, what network level filtering and monitoring is in place and who actually reviews the alerts? In the US, they have CIPA, which stands for the Children's Internet Protection Act, which requires filters if the school takes federal money. And I'll come back to that in a minute because filters without a human process to escalate incidents to parents are basically useless. Question 6, what alternatives exist for parents who refuse certain digital tools? Again, opt-out templates should be available and usable. Protect Young Eyes outlines a calm and streamlined process that has worked. Download their free research PDF and slide deck, find other parents, band together, request a meeting with the principal and the IT lead, and stay curious, not combative. Leave the materials for the principal and or the board to review, then you can follow up, preferably in writing, and then escalate to the superintendent or the board if needing, citing caring and safe learning environment language. Be prepared to attend a board meeting armed with sample speeches if you have to. Parents, you have to put in the legwork. And if you're here in Ontario, there's one more thing you need to know before you have that conversation with your school. Because the closest thing that we have to CIPA is a Policy and Program Memorandum 128, which requires Ontario school boards to restrict access to all social media platforms on school networks and school devices. Students can only use those platforms at school for educational purposes directed by an educator, with limited exceptions determined by the school board. So if your kid is sitting in an Ontario classroom on a school-issued Chromebook or tablet, there are already provincial rules governing at least some of what that device can access. And another change that began just last month on July 1st is another regulation under the Enhancing Digital Security and Trust Act, dealing specifically with digital technology affecting people under the age of 18. While these rules don't create a CIPA-style filtering mandate, they are supposed to make school boards be more transparent about what happens to students' personal digital information when it's disclosed to third-party software applications. For students under 16, for example, parents or guardians must receive written notice when their child's personal digital information is going to be disclosed to a third-party software provider, including what information is being disclosed, why, and the name of the software app and the third party receiving it, and who at the school board parents can contact with questions or concerns. Because having a policy on paper is not the same thing as having an adult who's actually looking when the policy gets triggered. And that's really the whole point of basically asking the principal and the board to prove that the technology they're putting in front of your child and in their hands has been vetted, thought out, governed, monitored, and made accountable to you as the parent. Because as parents, we shouldn't have to wait until something goes catastrophically wrong before we start asking what our kids are being exposed to for 6+ hours a day. Remember, it's not anti-technology to refuse to outsource your child's safety and mental health to an industry that has repeatedly shown it prioritizes engagement and data farming over kids, especially when we know that the big tech bros are choosing a tech-free education for their own children. Here in Canada, 4 of the largest Ontario school boards sued Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta over the impact social media is having on students' education. Back in June, Canada's Council of Chief Medical Officers of Health warned about the effects of digital and social media use on children and youth. And the government has introduced legislation aimed at making social media platforms safer for minors, but whether another set of rules will meaningfully change platforms inherently designed to maximize engagement remains to be seen. If you'd like, you can share this video with every parent group you're in, and if your school stonewalls you, let me know, because sunlight is always the best disinfectant. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Protect your kids because nobody else is going to do it for you. That's why we launched StopClassroomGrooming.com, a dedicated website documenting what's happening in schools across Canada, from radical gender ideology to concerns raised by parents about what innocence-thieving content their children are being taught or exposed to while at school. Stay informed and support our journalism at StopClassroomGrooming.com.